So Instagram just booted me off because someone sent me a message. That's not great, Instagram. We'll try again with Kat and see if we can get her back. So hopefully Kat will pop back on. Hello, if you're just joining. I was speaking to Kat Vellos, author from San Francisco, about her work connecting adults and friends. And I'm just going to sit and enjoy my coffee while Instagram catches up with what it's done. Oh, crikey. Well, that hasn't happened before. That's interesting. Yeah, okay. I'm really sorry, Kat. I'm going to get you back on. Hi, Kat. Oh, crikey.
Okay, 1 second here.
I'm sorry about that. Someone messaged me and I tried to get rid of it. It's all come back on. Anyway, you're back. Hooray. Maybe we should crack up questions.
Sounds good.
Yes, I wanted you to come on today, just talk a bit about connection and communities and stuff that I know is really important to you and a value that we both share, and that's how we've connected online. For those that don't know your work, do you want to just give a little intro, your little elevator pitch?
Well, I'm Kat Vellos here in the San Francisco Bay Area. I am a UX designer, so user experience designer. Typically, that means working with products and services, websites and apps, and working to make sure that any process that a visitor or user has to go through is going to be user-friendly. So seamless, smooth, not only makes sense, but is like lovely and pleasant to use. And so my approach to my work as a designer and a UX designer is about making things easier for people. Over the last 4 or 5 years, my side project has been working on this book, which is about making the process of friendship and connection easier, because interactions aren't only with digital devices. Our interactions are also with each other. I'm a facilitator, and I've been facilitating groups and workshops for the last couple of decades about personal growth, creative expression, authentic connection, and making those things easier for folks. And so over the last few years, as I was working on this book, for those who don't know what it looks like this. It is a book.
Right now, your glasses, your background, your book.
Thank you. Yeah, I love teal. The adult space when they are looking at adult friendship and connection, and what are the things that get in the way, and then what are strategies and solutions that work using design thinking, using experimentation kind of mindset to change those problems into solutions. So it's a really illustrator, so it's illustrated and has like a lot of I wanted it to be fun and interesting, because as a UX researcher, one of the things I found when I was interviewing folks about their experiences with connection, some people it was really challenging and they felt embarrassed about that, or kind of like a little bit ashamed. They thought something was wrong with them. And one of the things that the research showed, not just mine, but reams of academic research I did on the subject as well, is that it's not rare. At the time when I first started researching this, it was around just a little under half of Americans reported feeling lonely on a regular basis. In January of this year, that number got updated to 61%. So it's a lot of people that are just silently dealing with the experience of loneliness and disconnection and not saying anything about it. I'm a connection junkie, so I care a lot about this, and I want people to feel wonderful. So that's what the book is about. The follow-up, which is Connected from Afar, looks like this. I put out as an addendum this spring, shortly after the pandemic, because a lot of folks were asking for things that they could do with people that they couldn't get together. So some that I talked to were like, Kat, I need help with friendship, but I'm not a book reader, and I'm not going to sit and read through like pages and pages of research. So just give me things to do. And so Connected from Afar is things right away. And so those are creative ideas that people can use. And so my work is coaching people in small groups and one-on-one on these topics as well.
And what's really interesting there, like, although, some people might say, oh, but she's a, designer, user interface designer, but she's written this book about friendship. But to me, there's that obvious connection of the ability to empathize with people and to put yourself in someone else's shoes, whether that be the interface or the, people trying to make friends. And what I noticed through the critical thinking stuff is that, we're more similar than we think we are, essentially. What us and connects us much greater than the things that are different. And so if you can get beyond those kind of surface assumptions people make, like, oh, that person won't want to be my friend, they're too cool, or something like that, then
Exactly.
Most people love a chat and are happy to share and want to have a conversation or connect, maybe. Yeah. Oh, it's so heartwarming.
Thank you.
Okay, so I sent you a couple of questions in advance for us to discuss, and one of them was about how you've maintaining clarity and any time for reflection for yourself throughout this crazy few weeks that we've been going through. That's something that I really focus on, is helping people think clearly. What do you do to help yourself think clearly? What works for you?
I've had a lot of different practices over the years. For, over 15 years, I did morning pages every single day. So for those who aren't familiar, Julia Cameron's book, The Artist's Way, talks about morning pages as like a morning journaling practice, just like clear your thoughts at the start of the day before you do anything else. And now I don't do morning pages anymore. For me, what works is punctuating my day with breaks for reflection and downtime and like regrouping my energy. I'm an introvert, and so especially when I have to be around people a lot, recharge, disconnect, like just be still is actually really important. Now I can design my day because I work for myself now, and it's lovely because I can punctuate my day with times for connection and taking calls and taking meetings and working in session, and then also have time for myself to sit outside and like look at the birds and like come back in after 5 minutes,
Yeah. Oh, that's so important, isn't it? I saw something likening, looking at a cow. It wasn't necessarily about veganism or anything. It was just saying, oh, hey, here's the cow. The cow sits in its, it goes out and socializes. It stays still. It's really bored. It doesn't look at the outside world. Isn't that an awful life of a cow? And then it's saying, this is what we do to ourselves, so many of us. Maybe have to work, sit at a desk, occasionally have a chat, grab a coffee, work through lunch, come home, watch TV. You go, if that's life, is that really life? Having those moments, even if you love your work like you and I seem to, having those moments to look up and just, connect with someone, go outside, they're so important, aren't they?
Yeah, totally.
To the day at the end of the day. Yeah. So you mentioned that you're a bit of an introvert, but your work is all about connecting with people. And I've seen you've been in real high demand over the last few weeks and getting zoomed out, doing all these beautiful connection workshops. So how do you maintain in connecting other people? And how do you get that balance right, do you think, between you time and connected time?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And it's one that I think people are often surprised to hear an introvert, because they're like, oh, she's all about connection, so she must be an extrovert. And that's like the opposite. And part of the reason for that is because when I have a whole lot of extrovert time, I just like lose my energy. And so I want that time connecting with people to be really, really, really good, because I'm only going to have so much. And so for me, it just comes down to really prioritizing depth over. So in my personal life, with my friendships, is like really focusing on like a small set of people that I know are like lifers, like we're going to be friends forever. And the folks who are newer in my life that I want to like bring into that circle. It's not possible to be best friends with every single person that you know, or to like connect with every single person you know. And I think it really is important to have what's important. When you mentioned, like, a couple weeks ago, I was talking on Instagram about being zoomed out, and a lot of people are experiencing that right now because we've replaced something that is an extremely high quality experience, which is like being face to face, where there's so much nuance and nonverbal communication and body language and energy and all of these things. And a video chat doesn't give all of that, right? It only gives a face and real time communication, right? And so, but we have to work a lot harder when we have an image in front of us. And so we're doing all this work to, well, what is the, I look okay, kind of bad or whatever. So there's all this like distraction that, it's like an extra layer of what you have to do when you're in person. And I've been talking about this a lot lately. It's like, it's not always necessary to connect only in one method. And in fact, it's better to have multiple methods so that you don't get worn out and burned out on the one that you're using as a default. And I think it's really important to really understand yourself, like spend some time getting to know yourself and know what you need, and then create a balance that works for you. When I had or 2 weeks in a row, like zoom, 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 like, okay, next week I'm not going to do that. And it takes a little bit of effort to tell someone, like, can we just have an audio call instead? Or can we make that meeting 15 minutes instead of 30? I don't think we'll need the whole half hour. It works just to make it a little bit more flexible and add balance into your day.
Absolutely. Just last week, a lovely local lady called, she said she and I both train people to use Zoom, and so we kind of assumed that we would have a Zoom call. So I've not met her in person, so I thought it'd be really nice to see her and eyeball her, first time. But she messaged me just before and said, "Hey, should we walk and talk?" And I was like, yes, having that lovely conversation with her, but while in my local park. And there's a couple of points where I'm like, oh, I should have written that down. So there's note to self. But we chatted for an hour, and I got my step count up, and I got to look at birds and just wander around my local neighborhood and stuff. And it was just a really nice experience and memorable, because it wasn't just the same place that I am every day kind of thing.
Yeah, so yeah, that
balance. And I saw you were doing some work with that around audio only connection and things like that. I think that's really interesting. And there seems to be a bit of towards that, because some people, there's such an emphasis on visual appearance. So sometimes on Instagram, you feel like you've got to put your face on things and for people to see you. And I get it, because, it's such a natural thing for humans to want to see the person. But then when it's your own face, you're like, oh, that's what that's how we connect, isn't it? Seeing the face and recognizing the whole human being. Mm-hmm. But when it's just so tricky to get beyond those assumptions that people make. Yeah. Anyway, rambling. But
yeah.
Question you is going to be about how you help people connect through your work. So this might be a nice, you've got some tips to share for people, because we're all at different stages in this lockdown. I think you're still pretty locked down, aren't you, in San Francisco? Is that right?
Uh-huh.
Are you allowed out? Was there fines? What's the situation there?
So it's shelter in place still, like stay at home as much as possible. People are allowed to go to essential services like the grocery store, post office. Every minimum must go out, then do that. Wear a mask, of course, that kind of thing. But, I'm staying inside like as much as possible. And people are really respecting that. The Bay Area's curve is much flatter compared to some of the other counties in the state and compared to other places too. And so it's a worthy sacrifice to make to stay in to help have that positive impact.
Yeah. We're very lucky here in Western Australia. Things have started to ease off because the cases are low. So I'm like, it's such a weight off your shoulders when you're like, oh, I can just nip and get a coffee and not feel guilty if I leave the house for any reason. Even if it's just I just need to be outside of my four walls, essentially. So anyway, sorry, I digress. We were going to talk about your tips for how to help people Yeah.
Yeah. So,
or, getting slowly.
Yeah. So what I was saying earlier about prioritizing depth over breadth is like some of the tips I've been sharing with people and coaching on is like, it's not going to be super fulfilling to have a whole lot of shallow interactions where every single conversation is only about the crisis. We're living completely in a state of like living in constant anxiety and constant fear, and like not really getting to like a deeper place in terms of like where your heart is, what are the other things that your mind. And so prioritizing depth might mean connecting with fewer people more deeply, or it might mean prioritizing different kinds of conversations. So you're not just having the same conversation every single day. Those who have been following me for a while also know that I like really dislike small talk, like the kind of like, where are you from? Like, what do you do? Kind of conversation. And in a way, like, obviously the pandemic is important, and obviously making sure that the people you care about are coping okay is like super important. And I'm also seeing in a lot of ways this is new small talk, where it's like it's like the only talk about. And I want to give people permission to say, like, you're allowed to also have another kind of conversation. Like, you're allowed to have a break. You're allowed to do something else and to shorten to you in your life. What else is important in your journey? And so a project that I created early on in my research for the book is called Better Than Small Talk. And it's a bunch of conversational prompts that really invite open-hearted sharing each other on a deeper level and really feel a sense of authentic, genuine connection. And so those kinds of conversations are really good to have right now, because it doesn't mean that, okay, you're not going to talk about the crisis. It means you can only like watch Spider-Man or something. Like, you can still have like a really meaningful interaction. You don't just have to like replace it with fluff. Replace it with something good. Replace it with something that makes you feel alive. Replace it with something that makes you feel connected. Replace it with something that makes you feel inspired. And like, that is where vitality comes in. And that's what we need to carry on through this. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's kind of this weird curve of the number of conversations about coronavirus a day. And I don't know about you, but I felt like the first week, that's all I wanted to talk about, actually. And then you quickly kind of go, this isn't serving me. And it creates tension among friends if you're, slightly differently depending on your values. And all that judgment. They're like, how did that person, I don't know, go and get a takeout meal? Like, how awful. And you're like, but how do you know they got a takeout? Oh, you were there getting takeout too. Oh, but that's okay. Let's just talk about something else. And I think probably one of my coping strategies essentially has been to throw myself into my work, because critical thinking is quite, attached to news and current affairs, but it can also be very kind of general and non-specific kind of stuff. It's like universal ideas that apply throughout history and stuff. So to focus on that was my medicine, if you like, and then having conversations like this where we're like, okay, well, what's the kind of useful side angle of this, or how can we use this to push forward in a slightly different way, some lateral round and round in circles about the same thing when nobody really knows what's happening. And I know we never knew what's happening anyway, but I'm sick of conversations. So I've definitely sort of tried to steer conversations towards other things. Like top 3 like questions you use. Do you have some favorites that your go-to?
Oh, good question. I'm gonna look in. We should get together are all the Better Than Small Talk questions that are there. So there's like over 325 or 350 questions, and they're all designed to program. One of which is from, I think it's from the reflection category, kind of like looking back at your life and the experiences that you've had. Oh, yeah. One of my favorites is tell a story about a time you tried to get away with something as a kid. About how much risk people are willing to take in their life, or if they've always been a rule follower. Yeah. Describe a time with her.
Oh, beautiful.
That's another one. And one that I really love is, do you have any core, that's something that will really help you get to understand something. Oh, and another one I really love is tell a story about a time things worked out really well. Like a risk.
Yeah. And I'm already like, oh, let's talk about these. These are great questions. Some people's values, and having, even if it's someone you really disagree with, if you can understand their values, then it tells you a lot about why your approach is so different and your decisions are so different. Yeah. And someone would connect on something that you agree on, and every controversial. A good strategy to connect and then, have something a bit more meaty to discuss. How do people go? Because I kind of believe that you can learn, if you know enough of someone, you can kind of get to know pretty much anybody, even if it's completely different to you. That's just kind of my thing of like, if you don't like them, you probably just don't know or understand enough about them. Does that make sense?
Totally. I find it really interesting. Like I met somebody and like right off the bat, I was like, I don't know if I like them. But then like, if you get curious and you what they're an interesting being, like there's something that feels really different about this. Like, what is it about them? Over time, with get past that initial feeling and actually end up like really, really liking that person a whole lot. And in the book, it's so important to know people who are really different from you and to have a friend who is really, really different from you. I describe how one of my closest, bestest friends is somebody that like I couldn't be more different from. Moments where like we seriously disagreed and challenged each other on different things, but by sticking with it and remaining curious and remaining respectful and remaining like trying to understand where the other person was coming from, like heal in those conversations, it made our friendship so strong and it made us like super close. And he's one of my like best. It's just like such a strong friendship, and I think it's because like that trust that we created and like still having the friendship is just like that's what makes it stick.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
it wouldn't have worked. Disagreed, and I was like, oh, whatever. I'm never talking to you. Like, yeah, you can do that, and people do that. I think it's a bit rash, or like it's too quick to cut people out. And just remove them from any state of belonging with you. So I think that's a disservice. It's much more lovely to see like what it's like to find connection, even though you're not identical. You don't have to be the same as all your friends.
Yeah, definitely. And it's funny, like a lot of these things, the connections that we can make like that, they apply to workplaces as well. Like if I'm doing around thought, open to the people who aren't the yes people. And yeah, they might not be always the most kind of comfortable for you to be around, or you might not, let's talk about this, because we are, have similar. But it's really important to have that challenge occasionally and go, maybe I'm not right to the other side, or at least try and understand someone else's point of view. So often, those things which are a little bit uncomfortable lead to challenge us to challenge ourselves as well. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So like shared previously, my little community here where I live, how we've got
yes.
And yeah, like my next door neighbor, if she would do an Instagram live with me, concept of what Instagram live entails, and she's like, "What? So you just want an old person to ask questions to?" And like, well, perspective, because I get to chat to them all the time. Like one of them's 98 this year, that age. There's a couple more in their 90s, and bang on about how great it is to get that perspective and that what things look like when you're and I kind of want to share that, but yeah.
That is beautiful. I would love that. Because you have this access to an intergenerational experience that other people have, particularly in cities, or if people are only socializing with people the same as them, like they learning that happens when you have access to people much older, or on the flip side, if you're like here where I was living in Hawaii, and I rarely saw any kids because I was in an intentional community. And it's and like little kids and babies and stuff. And so, yeah, getting that experience. I think like too is like, what's it like to hear like wisdom from someone who's 98? Like, I don't know anyone who's 90.
Goes on holiday a lot, and so currently she can't do that. Sure, why not? Let's have a glass of wine and see what happens. You mentioned that an intentional community. What does that mean exactly?
So around the world, there's a bunch of different activities, and it can be anything from like a group of 3 people to the one I was at had over 100 people. It was about 125 folks on a rotating basis. Every week there were people arriving and leaving. Years, 10 years, 20 years, people stayed as long as they really wanted to. And intensity is basically the concept of a group of people who usually the community itself has some particular and the people who it's for the rest of your life to upholding that values or purpose and co-creating a community, again, like brings to and manifests those values. So the one I was at was an intentional community, was focused on like living a healthy life, being in touch with nature, and living in a positive community where everybody was supported to like learn and grow. So I loved it. It was a beautiful experience. It was a lot to live with that when you get out, but like every meal, there's like so many people, so not a whole lot of alone time. As an introvert, I sometimes found it kind of challenging, but I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. It was a really beautiful experience. Some of them are like, it'll be like a goat farm, like when someone goes, or it's like a organic farm and people are working there, or it's like a yoga retreat in Costa Rica or something. And there's all kinds. It's really a pretty neat, I would say, try it.
Yeah. Do families go? I'm thinking 2 small children in tow might be hard work.
Well, I don't. Some of them have different rules. The one small kids do, which is why I was saying it was weird to like live for a whole year and hardly ever see little kids. It was a retreat center as well as this attention. Oh, there's a baby. Like we never get to see kids. But yeah, it kind of varies. Some of them, yeah, you can totally like live or like.
Yeah, interesting. Oh. We often joke here with some of my best friends. They're like, life would be so much easier if we lived in like a big commune, all the kids, all the parents, and then we could just, babysit for each other all the time and stuff. So anytime a house comes up the complex, I always like ask all my friends if they'd like to move in and stuff. One other child who's like 18 months, who's here half the time, and then a 7 times too, but not full time. So kids running around the courtyard. My two are noisy enough, so God knows if there's a whole tribe of them, like Lord of the Flies. Oh, it's been so nice to talk to you, Kat, and stuff. But I really appreciate you making the time for this today, and I'll pop it up on YouTube and stuff with the recording, so we can watch it back. But it's been lovely. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much on, Beth, and I loved getting to you like face to face. We've been like messaging or so overlaps around connection and helping people grow, and I love your critical thinking work, and so it's just really watchers and all of my watchers the video. Feel free, I would say, to like if anybody wants to follow up or has questions about anything in the room. Say hi.
And I'm pass with and it's been really nice.
Sounds great.
See you soon. See you
later.
Bye.